Ladies and gentlemen, this is the world famous Bitcoin Original Gangster channel. I'm your host, SirToshi, and on this show we'll be defending Bitcoin gangster style from the misconceptions spread by snake oil salesmen and shitcoiners. On this show we'll be protecting Satoshi Nakamoto's design for Bitcoin as he intended it to be, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system for the world. Let's get the disclaimers out of the way. All the statements that you hear on this show are opinion and must only ever be taken as opinion. They are never to be taken as any form of advice, family, financial, sexual or otherwise. And on that note, let's sit back, relax, have some fun and enjoy the show. Here we go. It looks like we're streaming. I'm not sure if any of our viewers can see us, but I'm recording it anyway, so I can always upload it at a later date. Yeah, so thanks for joining me. I love meeting new people, just because I feel as though I'm transported out of my office and having a chat with a fresh face, which is good. So please feel free to introduce yourself to everybody who's going to be listening to this.
Yeah. So I go by CryptoKimbo on Twitter. So just an avid crypto fan, and you reached out to me, so I thought this would be fun. I've actually never got online and chatted with anybody, but certainly I think we all share the same passion about this stuff. So it's always good to listen to new perspectives and share our ideas and thoughts. So I'm looking forward to a fun discussion.
Yeah, I'm glad you started it that way, because that's exactly what I had in mind as well. I'm assuming that we all want the same thing, because the reason that Bitcoin was created is because of the issues with the fiat currency system. It's with fiat currency, because it has no fundamental value. In order to get it circulating, the banks have to put an interest rate on it, because if they just simply printed it and gave it out for free, there would be no sense of urgency for anybody to actually do anything with it. Effectively, it would be a socialist society where people just wait to be given stuff, and that's it. So they're just like, right, well, in order to give people a sense of urgency and actually make this money worth something, we're going to put an interest rate on it, and there are going to be consequences if you don't pay it back with that interest, backed up by the laws of this country. They put the interest rate on it, and then but in order to get the money back with the interest rate on it, that interest already has to be out in the economy somewhere. So the only way to get that interest out there is to give more loans to more people at, with interest rates on those. So eventually, because the money that you're holding devalues such a lot because the bank is constantly printing it, it means that it's going down in value. So therefore, you're always going to have people looking to store that cash value somewhere, which inevitably is going to cause a bubble, because people are just simply, the cash is just simply being printed, and then the people are just simply sort of like taking it from the bank, putting it in, let's say, the stock market, like in the Great Depression of the 1930s, and then the banks thinks, oh, we're doing really well, everybody seems to be enjoying themselves, let's print more money, and the bank had no idea where that money was being funneled to. Yeah, they were just printing it, and it was just going straight into the stock market, creating a massive bubble. And then after that, they created a law that said, right, you're now no longer allowed to, companies weren't allowed to buy back their own shares. And then after the depression of the housing crisis in 2008, they relapsed those laws and said, oh right, well actually, now you're allowed to. Directors are allowed to buy back their own shares in their companies, which again is going to lead to another bubble. So it was like a short-term fix for the housing problem. They were just like, "Oh right, how can we keep this? How can we kick the can further down the road from where we are right now?" But that's the main problem that I see that Bitcoin was designed to try and fix. So would we be in agreement on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think people are searching for yield with their dollars, right? So if they can't get it, certainly in this interest rate environment, you're not going to get anything out of the banking system. You're getting less than 1% interest. So this has caused people to move their money into such as real estate, like you said, or the stock market. And so what you're having is an inflation or a bubble in those real world assets, because the rich people don't keep their money in cash, because cash is a losing proposition. Um, you're not getting any yield, first of all, and you're losing to inflation. So it's a net negative. So I think that's why we're seeing some of these bubbles exist in the real world assets. And let's face it, um, the the poor or middle class really aren't in the stock market anyway. It's mostly just the rich and elite that are in the stock market. There's a big separation between Main Street and Wall Street. When we see the stock market go to all-time highs, the news likes to say, "Oh, the economy is doing great. Everybody is, everybody's prospering. Look at the stock market." But how many people are really invested in the stock market or have multiple properties of real estate? It's only a very select few on a percentage basis, and so you don't find that the economy is really doing well. In fact, there was that statistic that came out maybe, I don't know, 6 months ago that said, at least in the States, I don't know about in the UK, 40% of people could not afford a $400 emergency if they had to today. So, and this was when the stock market was at an all-time high. So how can the economy be doing so well when yet 40% of people can't afford a $400 emergency? There's a disconnect there between Main Street and Wall Street. So I would agree with you. This is why it was created, and the timing was perfect. And it's amazing to me that, I mean, there's jokes on Twitter that Satoshi was a time traveler, right? Because how could he have foreseen, this pandemic, what we're coming up to, the presidential election here in the States, and the fact that the market's crashing, I mean, and the halvening's coming up. I mean, everything is just aligning perfectly. It's shocking that the timing that when Bitcoin was released and where we are today, that it just aligns so well with what's going on in the world today. It's unbelievable, actually, when you think about it, how it could have been timed more. It couldn't have been timed any more perfect than it is.
Yeah. Some people do get lucky, whether it's coincidence or what. But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
But the thing is, though, when you consider, like, an economic crash does generally come along every 10 years anyway.
Yeah.
I suppose it was going to be released at somewhere in the economic cycle, wasn't it?
Yeah, I suppose maybe it was aligned with that 10-year cycle, but if not for this pandemic, I'm not sure we would be in a crash condition right now. I mean, some may argue we would, but maybe the pandemic is just accelerating it, or just kind of throwing gas on the fire. Maybe we were set up for one anyway. But the stock market and the real estate market here in the States was, as you know, was just screaming to all-time highs before the pandemic. I'm not sure what would have triggered it if this hadn't happened. Maybe just the continual printing of money and devaluing the currency would eventually, caused maybe an inflationary condition. I'm not really sure. But anyway, it's just interesting that we are where we are today. And that's why you and I are, I guess, passionate about this stuff, because we know that the existing system is really the one that's rigged, or sort of the Ponzi, right? Everybody likes to say Bitcoin's a Ponzi system or a Ponzi scheme. But to me, the fiat system is a Ponzi scheme, right? I mean, that's more of a Ponzi. You have central bankers all over the world printing and devaluing the currency, and we know what happens. The average life of a fiat currency is only something like 30 years, I think, or 50 years. And so we're way beyond that point. So we only know that it's a matter of time before the fiat system collapses.
Yeah, well, I think I read or heard somewhere that Warren Buffett was already mostly, very defensive about the stock market, because he looks at the value of the stock market in comparison to a country's GDP. So America's stock market was literally almost double its GDP, prior to this COVID-19 pandemic. So he was just like, look, it's ridiculous. Like, how can a country's stock market, and if you think about it, the GDP is the value of a country's, all of its, gross domestic products, or the value of all its goods and services.
It's output, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So therefore, the stock market should never ever go above, in terms of value, should never ever go above the GDP. And anything that is above the GDP represents pure speculation. Pure speculation.
Yeah. I guess I would sort of agree with that. I mean, Buffett is certainly a master, and he, it's tough to argue with him. But when I think about the small businesses in a country, they're not traded on the stock market, so they're contributing to the GDP, but they're not really a company that may be traded on the stock market. So I'm not sure, does it really align with the GDP? If a company, I mean, you have thousands and hundreds of thousands of businesses that are contributing to the GDP, but they're not publicly traded companies.
Right, yeah, so you got you. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, the stock market is representative of only the publicly traded companies. So, but I guess that's another metric. I mean, you can use all kinds of metrics to compare the value, the profit to earnings ratio, the price to book ratio, all these different ratios, as you know, if you invest in stocks. But certainly it felt like we were getting a little overheated. There's no doubt about that. I mean, like you said, the 10-year cycle, we were due for some sort of correction. I haven't seen it in real estate yet, but that may be the next shoe to drop, as people default on maybe their loans because they're not going to be able to pay back due to this pandemic.
Yeah. It's certainly. Oh, I've just checked our YouTube. We are actually going live. This is working. Fantastic.
It's working. All right.
It is. Yeah. I'm just gonna post this out to everybody here. So we've got one person in the room at a moment. Here we go. There we go.
That's okay.
Live now. Oh, check it out. There we go.
We'll take 1 over 0, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. There'll be more people. There'll be more people seeing this later on. There we go. Yeah. So let's get into the nitty gritty of Bitcoin. So I view. Let's talk about the white paper first of all. So
okay.
I view Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper as an academic piece of literature. So as we all know, academic pieces of literature are not released unless they have been tried and tested, and because if an academic piece of literature is released and there's faults with it, the academic society will never forgive you for it because you've published a piece of paper that is wrong without research. And if you're hanging around with those people who are at the top of academia, they don't want to be associated with anybody who's incompetent in that kind of way, because that's who they are. You're talking about professors at Oxford and Cambridge. They cannot have their reputation tarnished, so they research their papers before they actually release them. And whereas I think a lot of other people seem to think that the white paper was some kind of like a business plan written on the back of a fag packet by some gung-ho entrepreneur, and they were like, it's wrong, that's wrong, it needs changing, it won't work. So what's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, it was definitely well thought out. I mean, it certainly wasn't put together in an hour. I mean, you can read it and it's very deep, right? I mean, excuse me a second. When you go through it, I mean, obviously Satoshi, understood economics. He understood cash. He understood a lot about the economy, and so it's crafted very eloquently and very well thought out and written over a period of time. My only thing is, it was written about what Satoshi envisioned Bitcoin to be, and I just, I mean, certainly he couldn't outline every nuance and every detail about Bitcoin as it moved forward 10 years, right? He could only sort of set the base layer or the base premise behind Bitcoin. As the software and the technology evolves, we come up with new ways to program and new ideas. I have a little issue with saying that we can't deviate at all from the white paper. We must create Bitcoin to exactly match the white paper. I think that, he set the foundation, but then the human race and society is going to take that foundation and evolve it. And it's going to evolve in the best way that suits a transactional system that's going to work, a decentralized system. So that's where I maybe differ a little bit. I'm not so sure that we have to stick exactly to the white paper, because I just don't think there's enough detail in there when you get into the nitty gritty of the software and how it's going to operate. Human beings have to take it at some point and run with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that. But what makes you think that his paper wasn't correct or needed changing?
Well, it is correct, but the software hadn't even. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. The white paper was written and then the software was released. Correct?
Yeah. So I mean, there was a lot of research that went into the white paper before he released it. But he released the white paper on the 31st of October. Was it 2008? And then
2008 October. Yep.
Yeah, yep. And then I think it was 3rd of November that he did the first transaction with Hal Finney.
Right. So a month later, so he had been working on the software concurrently with the white paper. I mean, and didn't, and so, but I mean, I guess it's certainly the code base has changed from that first version that was released, right? We can all agree we're not operating off the same code base, right?
How do you mean? How do you mean same code base? I mean, like, do you mean protocol or code base or what?
Well, like I guess the client or the Bitcoin software that Satoshi was running, it's been changed through software numerous times, thousands of times since the version that Satoshi was running. Correct?
Oh well, the protocol hasn't changed.
Yeah, the protocol hasn't changed. You mean the when you say protocol, you mean but they've added all kinds of software enhancements to it, right?
Yeah, but who's they? Are you talking about Blockstream?
Well, the core programmers, right? I mean, if you go to GitHub, you can see all the different commits and changes that have been made to the software. Same with BSV, same with BCH. They've all been modified, right? You're not going to release a version 0.1 of a software and then never touch it for 50 years, right? That's not realistic. It has to be enhanced. There could be security bugs. There could be exploits. You learn things as you release software, as more users on board. There needs to be tweaks. Now, I'm not a programmer, so I can't tell you what was changed. But I think we're talking about. I think where we're going with this is the underlying premise behind it should not change, but the software and the implementation of it may have to. You agree?
So I guess we need to probably define what we're talking about here, because the protocol is the process of the digital transaction, and that's not changed at all.
Correct.
I would
agree.
So what has changed is, I mean, obviously, there's the caps, the block size cap that's being lifted, right. Scaling the network, whatever that involves, but it doesn't actually change the protocol in the way that transactions are actually made. But the main issue that caused these divisions was actually how the protocol was meant to operate. So Blockstream and the core guys added SegWit, and SegWit, as it is segregated witness, and the witness is the chain of signatures that's in Bitcoin that keeps the system honest. So if you have a chain of signatures, I mean, Bitcoin is all about relinquishing and diminishing power as much as possible. So if you have a system where everybody is accountable to someone, it just means that nobody can get away with doing anything that somebody else wouldn't know about. So therefore, even if they do have control of the system, they can't do anything about it. Whereas SegWit segregated those signatures, so it broke the chain, and basically that means that whoever it was that had the power to add SegWit and segregate the chain of signatures, so that effectively they could add malleability to the system and do stuff without anybody knowing about it, they then have complete control of the system, which goes completely against Bitcoin as being a world monetary system, because you have to be able to track money. If money could potentially be deleted, or somebody could just simply whip it out of the system without anybody knowing it, that's not a monetary system. That's absolutely insane.
Right, But I'm not understanding how the segregated witness change affected the reliability or trust in the system. I mean, you can still validate transactions. They're still immutable. They're still irreversible. There's no double spends. There's no problem. I mean, how did the segregated witness change affect the way the protocol is currently operating today?
Okay, well, I mean, if you're saying there's no change, then why did they implement it?
I think the theory was, and if I remember reading correctly, was one, it was a saving in block size. I think that by removing the witness, it gives you more room for transactions in the blocks. And then I think it also opens the door.
So are we
for
talking
further
about increasing the block size there?
Well, it had a side effect of increasing the block size, but I think it also opens the door to some privacy, some forthcoming privacy changes that they're going to be implementing into Bitcoin. And you needed to do that first in order to allow those privacy changes to take effect. Again, I'm not a programmer. I can only read what a lot smarter people are writing than me. But that's how I remember it. Maybe you remember it differently, but I think that's why they did it. It's all of this stuff is very methodical and logical. You have to take one step before you take the next step, before you take the next step. And the guys that program this stuff on all sides of these chains are super brilliant. They understand this stuff to no end, right? So they really have a vision for where they want to take the protocol. And of course, they need consensus to do it, but they have a vision. And they understand the logical steps that need to take place to get there. And I understand that SegWit was one of the steps to increase privacy, and as a side effect, we got a block size increase as well.
All right. Well, I would say with SegWit, they've broken the chain of signatures. So let's talk about like privacy and anonymity there. I would say that anonymity, just to have a bit of fun here, anonymity is when you go into the toilet and you shut the door and nobody can see what you get up to. There may be some evidence left afterwards when you come out, but the fact is you can do whatever you want in that toilet cubicle when the door is locked. That is anonymity. Privacy is when you and your partner go into a room and lock the door. There is the two of you. That's private, and the two of you can do whatever you like with one another, but you can both identify each other, but no one knows you're interacting and doing whatever it is you're doing. That's privacy. So it's so kind of like, and there are still laws that exist, between the two of you, even though what you are doing is in private. So, if one of you abuses the other or commits a crime, then the other person can report you if they want to. So therefore, it's an incentive to keep you honest.
Right.
So that's what privacy is. Whereas like anonymity is when literally like nobody can see what you're doing, which is what happens when you break the chain of signatures.
Okay. So how does that go back to SegWit, and how is nobody knowing what's going on if there's a transparent ledger?
Well, this is just it. They added SegWit, which means that and nobody could stop them. They had
there had to be a consensus. First of all, everybody had to agree to go with that change and upgrade their software accordingly, right?
Well, that's true, but why would you break the chain of signatures in a system that's meant to be a cash monetary system where it's absolutely imperative that the signatures validate each other and the transactions on the network?
I don't know the technical issue between breaking the signatures, and we still have a valid ledger, and we still have are you saying that the protocol is broken now because they invalidated the signatures?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can't send you any BTC and you can't trust that it's valid because the signatures are invalidated?
Well, you can do that, but what I'm saying is that single entity that added SegWit now has power over that entire system, and they are not accountable to anyone. So let's say if I did send you something and they've got control of the network, they could potentially do something to that transaction that neither you or I would know about. And they have the power to do that. Whereas when the signatures were there, linked to each other, they didn't have the power to be able to, they didn't have the power to be able to do anything because the system was open and transparent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole code base is open source, so anybody could, even after the segregated witness was instituted, anybody can review the code base, so it's still open source. So again, I'm not.
But what I'm saying is, who has control over it? That single entity that added SegWit now has control of the system, which means that they can get away with doing stuff and they're not accountable to anybody. So what I'm saying is, how can that be a monetary system? Because money has to be neutral.
Sure, but how do they have control? Everybody is running the software and validating. The miners are mining and the nodes are validating. So there's no centralized control. It's still a decentralized network.
Well, when you're saying there's no centralized control, if there was no centralized control, how were they able to add SegWit?
They got enough of the network to reach consensus to agree to implement SegWit. But that's
a centralized authority.
Yeah, but if they had everybody refused SegWit, they wouldn't have got it done.
But what I'm saying is, now that they've added SegWit and the signatures cannot validate the transactions, now whoever it is that has access to SegWit can potentially completely corrupt the network.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know enough about that much detail. If that's what you've read, and there's, I think you sent me some information about that already, didn't you? Yeah,
that's what SegWit is. But then also, Bitcoin was designed to be, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, and we just had somebody in the chat box here that just said, well, also, they added replace by fee. So if you're adding fees to the network to support the miners, and you're paying fees to use it, that is not a cash system. Cash is the most liquid form of money, which means it is the most liquid form of money is the money that moves freely. If you are putting charges on top of each transaction, to prevent people from using it, and therefore creating, you're basically restricting supply to increase demand so that the fees go up. That's not a cash system.
So the replace by fee is where you can pay an additional fee to have your transaction sped up. Is that right?
Yeah. To basically be put to the front of the queue.
Yeah, the front of the queue. Right. So you don't have to use that, only if you want to pay additional fee, right?
Well, yeah, but what if there's a lot of people on the network and you've got to pay for your Mars bar or your cup of coffee because there's a bus coming?
Yeah, well, now we would get into second layer solutions and not base chain stuff, right? Ultimately, I think that's where the divergence starts is, are we going to do everything on the main chain, or are we going to just use that as a settlement layer and we're going to do the day-to-day transactions on layered solutions? And I think that's obviously where the difference is between the two camps, right? This is where the divergence is.
All right. Well, let's talk about these second layer solutions. So if something is not going through the chain, I presume you would agree that blockchain technology is all about making data immutable. Yeah.
That's the premise. Yeah,
so a second layer solution does not use the blockchain, which means the data on it is not immutable. It can be deleted.
Well, it's used as a settlement layer, so you still need to tie into the main chain with the second layer solution. But what happens on the second layer solution is not happening on the main chain. Is that what you meant?
Well, yeah. So if it's not happening on the main chain and therefore it's not immutable, and you can't be sending electronic mail in the form of numbers to someone else and expect to have reasonable expectation and legal protection in that trade if you're not sending it through that second layer solution that doesn't have that isn't a money service business and doesn't have a money transmitter license, because you wouldn't be able to, you go to court and you would have literally no legal recourse on it.
But it's no different than, I mean, it's still a decentralized second layer solution, and
Yeah,
it's an open source software solution.
how can it be decentralized when there's a company when there's Lightning Labs that's actually designed it? And you have to,
Well,
if you want to send free transactions on this second layer, you can only send free transactions if you set up a channel, and a channel costs you. And therefore, suddenly, if you just want to go and buy a random cup of coffee from a coffee shop that you've never had a coffee before, it's completely, it doesn't make any economical sense to pay to set up a channel in order for you to pay for your coffee for free. So therefore, you would go through this Lightning network, which goes through these nodes, and these nodes don't go through the blockchain. So therefore, the data is not immutable. And if the data is not immutable, the only way it can be trusted is if that third party holds a money transmitter license.
well, you can open I mean, again, I think this is a brand new technology, or 5 years old, let's say, right? So it's evolving, just like all software does. And I don't know where it's going to end up. Right now, you have to open a channel with somebody. You're correct, to be able to transact with them. Eventually, there may be nodes that open channels to several businesses, and you just open a channel to that node and be able to transact through them.
But it's not immutable data, is it? Because it's not going through the chain. It's effectively like sending emails.
It depends how the protocol is written. If it's written with penalties, and meaning what? You think you can reverse the transaction?
Well, it can be deleted because it's not gone through the chain. Blockchain is all about immutable data. If it doesn't go through the blockchain, the data is not immutable. Somebody has the power to delete it. So if you let's say if you're a huge multinational company, and you're doing a deal with China or something, and you're sending hundreds of millions of dollars, you want legal recourse on that, so that let's say if you send that over to them and they just simply do a runner, or you don't get the goods that you expected, you want to apply the Misdescriptions Act or whatever. When you go to the court, you have to prove that you have reasonable expectation of that good or service that you are complaining to the court about. And the court will say, okay, well, have you sent them the medium of exchange that is representative in value of that good or service that you're expecting? If you just simply send them like an email, with numbers on it, because it hasn't gone through the chain, so it's literally just like sending an email, they're just like, well, all you've done is sent them a load of worthless data. You have no claim on that whatsoever. So therefore, you have to close the channel first of all, so that the data has actually gone through the chain, and then you have something to claim on.
Yeah, if you want to tie it back to the main chain, but I think within Lightning it tracks the transactions as well, so you do have proof of receiving and sending over the Lightning network.
Well, yeah, but it's not. That's what I'm saying. It's not immutable. The Lightning network is not immutable because it doesn't use the blockchain. It doesn't use blockchain technology. Someone somewhere has the power to delete it.
That I don't know about. You mean somebody could click a button today and make all Lightning nodes just disappear?
Well, I mean, Lightning Labs could certainly probably take it down and make it disappear. But they're saying that if you have to close in order to redeem your Bitcoin or the Lightning coin, whatever you want to call it, you have to close the channel, and it's only when you close the channel that your genuine Bitcoin is redeemed. And
that's correct.
So that means that if you're not going through the chain, effectively you're sending IOUs to the other person, because it's an IOU until you decide to close the channel, and then the Bitcoin gets redeemed.
Well, yeah, they've locked up. I mean, to open a channel, you have to lock up a certain number of BTC, or otherwise you can't use Lightning. So you've locked it up, and it's time locked basically, and that's how it's exchanged. And then when the transactions are done, whatever party has the Bitcoin left over, that they can redeem it to the main chain. But again, it comes down to, what are we going to use each layer for? I mean, if you're going to send $100 million, you probably would use the main chain and not Lightning, right? Because Lightning right now, you couldn't send $100 million over that. It wouldn't. There's no node capacity for that.
Well, exactly. Whereas Bitcoin was designed to allow that. It was designed. Satoshi designed it as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It didn't matter the amount.
That's right.
Didn't matter the amounts that you were sending. I mean, Bitcoin actually solves the issue of micropayments. You can make a micropayment on Bitcoin, and the way that Satoshi Nakamoto envisioned this was that if you are going to make data valuable, as in like Bitcoin, people first of all have to have a reason to buy it. And therefore, the reason they would buy it is that they're buying Bitcoin to upload data onto the blockchain. Because once the data is on that blockchain, it is immutable forever. You can control who can see it and who cannot. You don't have to worry about somebody altering it or deleting it, because everything is timestamped. So therefore, you can see if it's been changed and changed by who and where and when and what and how and everything like that. So whereas at the moment,
how does that scale though?
How does it scale? Well,
how does that scale for 7 billion people?
Well, it can do 3 million transactions a second. 3 million transactions per second. I mean, Visa and MasterCard can only do 2,000 transactions a second on their network.
Has it proven to done? Has there been proof?
Yeah, well, it's already done 2,000 transactions a second, and the Terranode project hasn't even been implemented yet.
Right. So who's going to run these Terranodes?
Well, this is it. So it's going to end up in huge data centers around the world. So it's going to be institutions that do large volumes of transactions, like Google, Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, Goldman Sachs, investment banks, retail banks, the biggest businesses in the world that do a huge volume of transactions. It's going to be economically worthwhile for them to have their own mining equipment, so that they're not only rewarded with transaction fees, but they can also validate their own transactions, and everything goes on chain. So it just means that at the moment, because businesses are paranoid about their data, so if you're a financial institution and you lose a customer's data, and it doesn't matter how small this customer is, you can be sued, you can be fined, you'll be publicly humiliated, customers will lose confidence, share prices will drop, heads will roll. So this is why businesses spend millions, if not billions, on cybersecurity, virus software, storing it in multiple locations, backup generators. They are absolutely paranoid about their data. Now they can get rid of all of those costs, and they can just simply put it all on chain, because it's the network itself that's actually decentralized and distributed. So there's no single central point of failure.
Right. But again, who's going to own these Terranodes or these farms? Are you talking about the Goldman Sachs of the world and the Amazons? And they're going to own these farms or nodes?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're going to have about 5-10 companies running all the nodes?
Well, have you seen? Well, yeah, but we're talking about countries. We're talking about companies all over the world. We're talking about the biggest companies in China, America, Europe, Australia, South Africa, the wealthiest countries in the world, Canada. They have huge corporations that are gonna want that at the moment spend millions, if not billions, on data sharing security.
Right.
So they're the people. They're the people that, let's say, the central banks. The central banks are also going to want to have their own mining farms. Because they do such a high volume of transactions, they're going to be rewarded with transaction fees, and it also means they can validate their own transactions. So they're just like, well, yeah, and they'll be they're going to be mining it for the next 150 years anyway. So they'll be making money, when the value of Bitcoin increases anyway, and the number of people using it starts to increase.
Yeah, I guess but to me, it's still somewhat centralized then, because if you're going to send $10 million to I don't know what's maybe considered a terrorist country, then somebody can stop it, right?
Well,
because with a phone call to Goldman Sachs or to Amazon, they'll say don't process that transaction. So I mean.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's there.
You don't want to put the power of approving or not approving transactions into the world's largest corporations.
Yeah, but
now we're going back to the
exact
exact same system we have now.
But that means you're basically going to have to ask for cooperation between America, China, Russia, all these countries like North Korea. they're all going to have to cooperate. If America says, "All right, we don't want this, payment going through," Russia will be like, "No, don't think so, mate. We're going to mine that and we're going to process it for them." Or the China will be like, "Oh no, we're going to process it." They have to have a valid reason to stop that transaction. So for example, if it's like somebody buying kiddie porn and stuff like that, you do not want that. You do not want those types of systems. Allowed to flourish, because let's say if you do get a huge amount of child abuse imagery on chain and stuff like that, the US will very quickly shut it down, just like they did with Liberty Reserve. Bitcoin is an economic model. It grows and it's used because it's economically incentivized. If you want to commit crime on it, then you will be stopped.
Right, even though the US dollar today can't be stopped for doing that. Or the British pound.
Well, if you went up to your local law enforcement, or somebody reported you and said, "Oh yeah, because I'm going to send $100 million to this this terrorist organization," they will stop you. It's as simple as that. You're trying.
But if I loaded bags of cash onto an airplane and flew somewhere, nobody will stop you. Because it's
yes, they would.
It's cash.
What you're trying to tell me that people haven't? You're trying to tell me that people haven't tried to smuggle millions of dollars through customs? I've seen it before in bags, in duffel bags with monies wrapped around them and stuff like that. You'll be scanned and you'll be stopped.
Have you seen Narcos?
Well, yeah, but I mean, look at the lengths they go to. That costs them a fortune to do that. It costs them an absolute fortune.
Yeah, but the point is they did it. They took hundreds of millions of dollars back and forth.
Yeah, but how much money do you think they also lost?
They made more than they lost, for sure.
Well, yeah, they made more than they lost because the market was massive. But what I'm saying is, they got caught. But this is where privacy comes in. So if you've got a huge system, like criminals do not like to be identified as criminals. Criminals like to blend in with society. So therefore, privacy comes with increased usage. So therefore, if they want to try and get away with shit, then the chances that you increase your chance of getting away with it by using a larger system. So that's privacy.
Right.
But if you are doing something that breaks the law and law enforcement have got their eye on you, chances are you will get caught.
Oh, that for sure. Nobody's arguing that. I mean, but if you're talking about privacy, I'm not so sure. I mean, how is it private if everything's being tracked on the main chain and you can be tied back to an address? How is that private? Do you believe in coin mixing then, or what?
No, because that's like anonymity. There's like privacy is between you and someone else. So as in like that person can identify you. So therefore, if you do a runner with the trade, they can report you and say, look, we were trying to conduct business here. I sent the medium of exchange first, and this person has just simply done a runner with my money. I want it back. Right. So if you take them to court, one, you have to prove reasonable expectation. So first of all, you have to prove you have to show that you've actually sent the value across, and then you have to prove that you've sent the payment and that you've paid them. If the payment is anonymous, you can't prove that you've sent it to them, and they can't even prove that they've received it. So therefore, you have no legal recourse in that trade whatsoever.
Yeah, but Bitcoin is not anonymous; it's pseudonymous, right? So you can be you can't be identified, but certainly everything can be tied to an address.
Well, yeah, but people have to know who's behind that address. But what I'm saying is, like, right. You can when you have a chain of signatures, you can track that transaction. Whereas when you have those signatures that are broken through SegWit, it means that somebody, a third party, can get in and meddle with that transaction without either of you knowing about it. That's the whole point of SegWit.
Well, have they done it?
Well, not yet, but why would they add SegWit if they're not going to do it?
Well, as I said, SegWit opens the door to other types of privacy solutions. So
yeah, but are we talking privacy or anonymity? I mean, how much privacy do you need? All you need to be able to do is identify the person that you're trading with. That's it.
Yeah, but I mean, right now with cash, it's anonymous, right? With hard.
Well, not if you're standing in front of that person. If you exchange cash via hands, you can see that person and they can see you. That's not anonymous. That's private.
Yeah. I mean, it's, but they can't track you. They can't. Not every cash transaction is tracked
Well, yeah,
by
but
the government or
it's
somebody.
economic. If that person, if the two people in the trade don't have a problem with each other, then that trade is
Right.
fine. Business is conducted and they can go about their lives. But if one person reneges on the agreement or doesn't give the good or service that was initially described, then you have a legal recourse to claim it back. And you can't invoke martial law and go up to that person and put a gun to their head and say, look, give me my money back or that good or service, because that's
Right.
illegal. You end up with like an anarchistic society. So therefore you have to rely on the laws of the land to enforce that contract for you.
Of course, always. It
Well,
always
yeah.
comes back to that.
So if you want to rely on the laws of the land, you have to prove that you have sent the medium of exchange first and that they've received it. So therefore you have legal recourse.
Yeah, and so why can't second layer solutions keep a ledger or track transactions being sent and received? It's not that difficult to do.
Well, yeah, but it's not immutable. So therefore the data has no value whatsoever. You're literally just
Yeah, but
sending
when
like numbers via email.
yeah, I guess, but I mean, if you subpoena both parties, and I sent $100 to somebody, and you subpoena the other party, and their Lightning node shows they received $100, what is somebody going to say? That's all made up and fake, and the money wasn't sent? Is that not enough proof?
What if they shut their Lightning node down? But but if we're talking about proof, why not just simply scale the chain and use that?
Well, we can, but will it scale to the I don't know. Will it scale to 7 billion people?
Well, yeah, that's the whole point. Satoshi designed his system so that it would scale for 7 billion people to use. There would be no point in designing a system that couldn't cater for it.
Yeah, well, I guess Satoshi envisioned that, but what Satoshi wants and what the technology can offer can be two different things.
But this is it. His technology does offer this. It's being proved already in BSV.
Well, I don't know if BSV will do, hundreds of thousands of transactions a second.
It will do 3 million transactions a second.
Who they're not even 3 million. Where did it do 3 million? It's not even, the average transactions on it is maybe 100K, 200K, right?
Yeah, but it's designed to cater for 3 million transactions a second and more. There'll be an unlimited block size. So first of all, you get instant confirmation on the network. Then, so long as 50% of the nodes validate it, that's effectively like your Lightning network. Then that goes into the block, which gets 10 minutes worth of data in it with all these transactions going through it. Then that block is put into the Hashcash puzzle, which all the miners go at to try and crack SHA-256, and then it's registered on chain. And all the time while they're doing that, more blocks are being propagated and more transactions are being put onto the network.
Right. But are you considering a one confirmation transaction immutable?
The initial.
I mean, I've seen these videos where look at Bitcoin Cash, look at BSV. Boom, it cleared in 1 second. Yeah, with zero confirmations, it was broadcast to the network, but there's 0 or 1 confirmation. It still can be reversed unless there's sufficient number of confirmations on top of it. So you can't claim that.
Yeah, but reversed by who?
By a takeover of the network, a 51% attack.
But who would do that? Who would have the economic incentive to do that? Who would have the economic incentive to do that?
Who could have? What do you mean? To take over a network to profit from it? Nobody wants to do that.
Well, yeah, but how much would it cost? How much is it going to cost to have 51% of the network just to reverse a $10 million transaction? It's not worth it.
What if it's 100 million?
Well, it's still not worth it. The cost of the network is absolutely massive. The cost of the network is billions.
I don't know. I don't know what it would cost because I don't know what hash rate and how if two miners collude and get 51%. The point is, I mean, everybody says you need 6 confirmations to really ensure that your transaction is immutable, and so I don't know. I mean, sure, you could say the same thing with Bitcoin right now. I get a 0 confirmation transaction. Oh, it's complete. It's not, but if you're transacting a house, are you going to trust a zero confirmation transaction if somebody gives you that money and you're given the keys to your house and say done?
Yeah,
No, you're
but
going
yeah,
to
but
wait for
yeah, but
six
the
confirmations.
most they're gonna have to wait is 10 minutes for it to be mined in a block.
Yeah, provided if with an infinite block size, I can still process 10-minute blocks.
Well, yeah,
B,
that's
B,
the whole idea.
BCH just did a halvening yesterday or today, and they're mining about a block an hour or a block every 2 hours because the hash rate dropped, right? So it only does 10-minute blocks if there's sufficient hash rate on the network.
Well, yeah,
If there's
and
no
there's
hash rate, I'll get a block a day or a block every 2 days. I mean, it depends on the hash rate. If there's no miners, then I don't get blocks every 10 minutes.
yeah, exactly, and you won't get hash rate on the network if there aren't enough transactions to service the miners.
Then they have to be profitable too, right? The miners have to make money, and the coin has to go up because it's not just the transactions the miners are counting on; they're counting on their block reward.
Yeah,
And if
yeah.
the coin has no value, the miners are not. It's not profitable for them, so they're going to go mine somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. So Bitcoin has to increase in value, and the way you get it in, and the way you
and it
increase
has.
in value is by getting more people to use it, and the way you get more people to use it is by making the service more, desirable. As in, kind of like all these companies buying Bitcoin so that they can actually upload their data onto the chain to save themselves millions, if not billions, in data efficiencies and data security.
So why haven't they done so yet?
Well, they have. They're building it. They're building it right now. This is what
Okay.
Bitcoin BSV is all about. This is what Satoshi had in mind. This is why he designed it. So microtransactions were absolutely critical in order that companies could buy Bitcoin and they would use the transaction to upload huge amounts of data onto the blockchain. But in order to make that economically viable, the transaction of uploading data onto the network has to be absolutely minuscule. And it's that cost versus the cost of staff, cybersecurity, virus software, multiple locations, upkeep, update of the servers that they're on. They can get rid of all of that. So now all they do is they just simply pay a microtransaction, and the amount of data that you can put on chain is unlimited because the blockchain is an infinite sum. It never stops. It's not like a server that has that runs out of capacity and runs out of space. The blockchain is infinite.
So what information do you think these companies are going to put on the blockchain?
Everything, absolutely everything.
But why would they want? It's a public ledger. Anybody can go look at the blockchain. Why would a company like Goldman Sachs or any of these large corporations put proprietary or private information on a blockchain where everybody could see it?
Because they own the keys to that data. They can control who sees it and who they share it with.
But I thought the whole idea is an open ledger where everybody has access to look at the blockchain. Now you're talking about a blockchain that's partially closed and private, only
in terms of data.
People?
Yeah, in terms of data that's on it, when you upload that data is yours. The miners have no idea who you are. Yeah, they're because you have private keys associated with that data.
Okay, so maybe I'm not understanding. So they're locking their data behind a private key.
Yeah.
Okay. And sorry. Tried to come out, but it's a little too noisy.
That's all right.
So, but then it's not an open ledger really, because it's being used. So what you're saying is, it's not going to be used just for cash or transactions. It's a data storage system.
Yeah, well, it's not just a data storage system, it's data sharing. So if you want to share data, at the moment, you can either put loads of it online and that's available to everybody, and it can actually be deleted because somebody's got access to it and it's not on the blockchain, so therefore it can be deleted. There's only a limited amount that you can send via email. There's still only an even lesser amount. There's still a limited amount that you can send via like Amazon Web Services and Google Drives and stuff like that. And therefore,
right.
if you want to send huge volumes of data or share huge volumes of data between people on different sides of the world, you effectively need your own private network in order to do it. Whereas now you don't need that. you can just literally put everything on chain, and you can control who sees it through your private keys. And you don't have to worry about anybody, deleting it or altering it, because everything's on chain. You can see who it was done by, when and where.
Yeah, I don't know if companies will go for that. I mean, they're so paranoid. I mean, having worked for companies, putting it out there with private keys, there's always still a risk that the keys are stolen or lost, and that's
their responsibility. I mean, there's more chance of that data being hacked by a member of staff who has access to that server that's been bribed by someone, that's given the economic incentive to do it. There is more chance of that data being corrupted that way than there is, of you losing your private keys if you want to. Well, even then, you don't have to worry about the data being deleted, because it can't be deleted because it's on blockchain, and it's already on a decentralized distributed network. So no one source has the power to take it down.
Right. Yeah. Well, the company if they're controlling their own network, that's the same thing. Nobody has the authority to take it down because the company is controlling it. So
yeah, but the company there could be a nefarious source in that company that could take it down. Whereas blockchain prevents that. You can't. Once data is on the blockchain, it's completely immutable.
I mean, companies have backups and data centers and redundant backup after backup after backup. So it's very hard for a rogue employee to come in and wipe out a server, right? I mean, that doesn't really happen these days because everything's redundant and backed up.
Yeah, but that costs a huge amount of money to do that.
It does, but there's also some information that's so important and so critical that they don't even put it on the network, right? They just have a closed intranet within their organization, and it doesn't touch the internet at all.
But within that organization, someone has access to it and someone knows where it is.
They do, but I would argue that's more secure than putting it on a blockchain, right? Because it doesn't touch the internet at all. It only touches the internal network.
Yeah, but you can just hide your private keys. I mean, SHA-256 cannot be cracked.
Oh no, for sure. I agree.
Yeah, so therefore, what's important, because data storage is infinite on the blockchain, what's important is how quickly that data can be uploaded and the cost. So that's what Bitcoin Satoshi's vision. This is what he had in mind. It was like, it's blockchain technology. This is what blockchain is used for. What's that?
The white paper never talked about what you're talking about. So again, it's a deviation from the white paper. It doesn't
the white paper was only 12. The white paper was only 12 pages long. It doesn't change the underlying protocol. This is how Bitcoin works. You can just apply it to different uses.
Sure. I mean, you can interpret it however you want. I'm just saying they didn't specifically talk about that. I don't think maybe Satoshi had that in mind when he wrote it, but maybe it was more about just transactions, cash transactions.
Yeah, but this is what can be done.
Yeah, of course it can be done. You can do a lot of things. The point is,
you can only do it with a huge block size and unlimited data. You can't do it on a network that's purely like replaced by fee, and you certainly can't use a network that has SegWit in it, where you have a single entity who has complete control of it.
Right. So, and if that's what BSV's vision is, to get corporations to store all of their data on the blockchain, that might be a little bit different from what the Bitcoin core team is thinking.
Well,
right?
that's what BSV is doing. Have you heard of EHR health data?
No, what is that?
Well, so that they're putting 4 years of medical records onto the blockchain. Because when you put a medical record onto the blockchain, it basically means that your patients then your patients own their own data. So therefore, you can use that data and share it with anywhere or anyone anywhere in the world that you wish to.
Sure, which is how it should be. Is that happening in the UK?
Yeah. There's also another. There's a Polish company recently who's basically it's going to be like supply chains and everything going on the blockchain. So if you think about it at the moment, if a supply, I mean, McDonald's is the best example of a company that owns its own supply chain from start to finish. But that's because they're a hugely wealthy company. And they can afford to do that. Whereas if you're like a small independent coffee shop, and you want to sell organically grown, ethically sourced coffee beans, to sell at a premium, you basically have to, rely on the word of your supplier. Your supplier might just say to himself, "Oh, well, I know these people are willing to pay an extra cent for an extra, a 10% for organically grown, ethically sourced coffee, and I'll just put an extra 10% on them, and they won't know any the wiser." Yeah, they're just sort of bragging about it to people. Whereas if everything is on the blockchain, you can see which farmer grew it, who they sold it to, which market it went to, how long it's been stored for, if the weight of the bag has changed, and then who it was sold to next, and then eventually how it came to you. You can see everything, and you can trust the data because everything is on the blockchain.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We agree. We agree, and there's lots of blockchains trying to do that exact same thing, right?
Yeah, but they can't do that unless they massively scale.
Right. So I guess the question is BSV trying to do everything, like consume the data of the world?
Yeah.
Or is it just trying transactions?
No, they're trying to...
data for companies. I mean...
BSV is trying to do literally everything.
And eat the whole world up in data. But I...
Oh, you're still there?
You're breaking up.
Oh, must be
breaking
signal.
Up a little bit.
That's all right. You're back. I can hear you now. Can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah. You're breaking up. I lost you there for a minute.
That's all right. Yeah, this conversation is just about to get really interesting. It always technology always lets people down just as we're getting into it. Hello, can you hear me? There's no audio coming through at your end. Oh, tell you what. Let me see if I'll resend.
Yeah,
the
I
link.
can't. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. I can try and resend the link if you think that would help. Would that help? Hold on a second. Let me. I'll resend the link. Hold on.
I hear you. Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah. Do you want me to try and resend the link, or are we back? Oh. Here we go. Let's try this. Copy link to share. Come on. Let's do this. Try and get him back in. Alright, 2 seconds, folks. That was just getting really good. He was just starting to get it. I don't believe it. Come on, tech. We can do this. Let's get him back. Here we go. Try again. Alright, there's a sent. There you go. Try again. Let's have it. Fingers crossed. This time. See if he comes back in. There we go. Got a picture coming through. Fingers crossed. Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're back. Loud and clear. Whew.
All right. Whew. We dodged the bullet. I don't know what happened there.
Oh, do you know, there's loads of people in the chat box getting really excited. They were just like, wow, this guy is actually just starting to get it. This guy is starting to realise that digital data is too precious to be lost. In the future, I think the idea of uploading your family photos and wedding videos to a corporate server who can just simply delete it will be absolutely preposterous. Like people can lose years and years worth of data on YouTube because they can just simply take down your channel whenever they like. Facebook can delete your profile.
Sure. Those are centralized services. But wasn't there a project called Filecoin that was doing something very similar?
Well, yeah, but that was a complete exit scam. That was a con. That cannot be.
Was it?
Well, yeah. If something's going to be money, it has to be neutral. This is the paradox of the centralized starting point with money. So if something has a centralized starting point, it means that there is effectively an infinite supply, because it means that somebody else can start the same thing anywhere at any time, which indicates an infinite supply, which means absolutely zero value. And this is why Satoshi Nakamoto decentralized the starting point. See, what he did is he wrote the paper in English and released it to the Western world, but he gave himself a Japanese pseudonym. So that means that nobody knew what his identity was. And the reason he chose a Japanese pseudonym is because Japan is a technologically advanced, highly developed, politically neutral country that's as far away from the Western world as you can possibly get. Hence it's called the land of the rising sun. So people were less inclined to distrust him because of using the Japanese name. Japan is also a relatively insular country with not many people speak the language, so there's a huge a language barrier there, and that meant that allowed the network to grow without any central point of authority for 10 years. And this is why it was absolutely critical that Satoshi Nakamoto step away from the project, because if you've got a project like Ethereum or this Filecoin or whatever, effectively, they have not created anything that the Chinese government or the American government couldn't just simply replicate themselves because of that central point of authority. Whereas what they can't replicate is the value of Bitcoin, the network that's grown over a period of 10 years without any central point of authority. They can't replicate that overnight. That's the value of the Bitcoin network. So when you're choosing which network to use, this is where credibility comes in. You're just like, well, how can we make people agree on using a particular network? All right, well, that means you're going to have to choose the network that is the most neutral and the one that fulfills trade in the best way possible, which is what scales for the entire world to use, which is the cheapest and the fastest and the best at absolutely everything.
Right. Yeah, well, I think Filecoin was supposed to be decentralized. It wasn't run on one server. Everybody was running a version of their software, right?
Yeah, but this is the point. So a lot of people confuse decentralized with thinking that therefore there's no central point of authority. You can have things distributed in different parts of the world, but if those parties in those different parts of the world collude together, you therefore then have a centralized source, which is centralized. The whole point of Bitcoin is to dilute power. It takes power away. And the reason it does that is it holds everybody accountable through the chain of signatures. So it just means that no one individual can control that network.
Right.
And they're kept honest because they're validated by the signatures on the network. Whereas once those signatures are broken, i.e. with Sedgwick, whoever it is that added that anonymity has complete control of the system because they're not accountable to anybody and nobody can see what they're doing. So therefore you cannot have an anonymous system. An anonymous system has got no fundamental value whatsoever.
Okay. And why is that?
Well, because if you have an anonymous system, whoever it was that designed it or added the anonymity has complete control of that system.
Okay. And what can they do with that control?
Well, they can steal your money. They can do whatever they want. They have complete control over it.
So you think Blockstream has complete control over the Bitcoin network, and at any point they could exit scam with everybody's money?
Well, yeah, they could do. I mean, was it Blockstream that added SegWit?
Well, I thought that's what you said.
Well, yeah, but you tell me, was it Blockstream that added SegWit? Who was it that added SegWit?
It was a consensus.
But someone must have added it. Someone has got the power to implement it.
There was a program. I don't remember the programmer's name, but I mean that's how proposals are. Programmers propose proposals, and if everybody agrees,
but isn't that convenient if you can't remember his name? And you got the one person who added this thing, which breaks the chain of signatures, which means that malleability can leak into the system, which therefore means that nobody is accountable, and you don't know this guy's name. I'd be all over it.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, why does it matter who it was? I mean, it doesn't matter.
Because you want to know who stole your money.
But it matters if it gets consensus or not. And why haven't they stolen it? There's billions of dollars to be stolen already. What are they waiting for?
But Blockstream want to basically, if you look at where their funding is, I mean, let's go conspiratorial here. Let's talk about money. So, at the moment, the Federal Reserve, the US dollar, is the world's reserve currency. They can print whatever they want, whatever they like, and we already know that they do massive off-balance sheet transactions. Who knows where that goes? So if you've got a monetary system that comes along, do you think that the people who control the Fed are going to be happy about it?
Can you connection issue again? I think.
Yeah, you kind of.
Hello.
Yeah, I can still hear you. Can you hear me? Tell you what, I'll do you want, you might be back. I can see you.
You want me to my video? Maybe turn off my video. There.
I can say just do a mic check. Say testing 1 2 3. Can you hear me? Hello. Yeah, you can turn off video if you like. I think it might be your connection. Everything looks okay at my end. I've got.
Yeah, I did that. Is that better?
I can hear you. Yeah, that's good. Try again. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Great. Well, tell you what. Let me just me see if I can. Yeah, that's all right. Okay. I should be able to see your. Should be able to see your Google profile picture up on the screen. Can you
want me to disconnect?
No, it's all right. I can hear you. Let's just carry on like this.
Okay.
So long as we can hear.
Yeah, we'll try it.
Okay, yeah, we'll just
so
hang
you were
on there
saying
like this.
about the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, so
you were talking about the Federal Reserve. Yeah,
so if you've got an organization like the Federal Reserve that's completely independent from government, they have complete autonomy to do what they want. They effectively pay the people who regulate themselves, to regulate them conveniently. Do you think that they are going to be happy about a monetary system that comes along that they don't have control over?
Of course not.
Right. So if you cannot shut Bitcoin down, but you want it to fail, the way you get it to fail is by dismantling the blockchain. And effectively, with the miner rewards, all you do is you basically hope that not enough people use the chain for the miners to not get enough economic incentive to continue to support it, and then the project just simply dies and we're back to using fiat. So the way you do that is you encourage people not to use the chain. So you put replaced by fee on there. So the people who say, I can't really use that, it costs too much money. We'll create a second layer solution. So again, you don't even have to use the chain for that either. Even brilliant. And then we'll change the narrative. And what we'll do is we'll tell you that it's a store of value. It's no longer a peer-to-peer cash system. It's censorship with money. It's censorship-resistant money. It's meant to be really small. People aren't meant to use it. And then over time, there aren't enough rewards to support the miners, and the project dies. And they're like, great, job done.
Well, the miners certainly aren't taking that message because the hash rate's at an all-time high for Bitcoin. So if it wasn't profitable, why haven't they all gone?
Well, let's have this chat in a few months, shall we?
We will after the halvening to see what happens, right? Because that's going to be interesting. BSV has a halvening coming up in 3 days, I think, or 2 days, and Bitcoin has one in about a month. So if your theory's correct, then the block reward's going to be cut in half, and the miners should flee, right? The hash rate should plummet, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I guess the test will be, what do you think, a month, 2 months?
Well, who knows? But the fact is, the miners are only supported by the value of Bitcoin. If
that's right.
If the block reward comes along and that's halved, and the value of Bitcoin plummets, how are the miners how are they ever going to be able to sustain themselves?
Well, it depends on what their mining costs are, and if they're in China at a hydro dam, or if they're in the U.S. But efficiency mining hardware changes all the time. So the big players get more efficient hardware, so they can continue to mine. But at some point, the
Yeah, so the
small
network
players,
so effectively the network gets smaller and smaller and smaller as the little fish
well,
die
it
off.
moves. It moves. It moves to where the cheapest power source is. Bitcoin always finds the cheapest power source. So whether that be an oil refinery where they're flaring gas and they can get it for free, or a hydro dam, or somewhere in Iceland or Greenland where the power is cheap, that's all miner strategy, where to go to get the cheapest power. So if the price plummets and the halvening occurs, then either miners have to continue to mine unprofitably with the hope that the price will rise in the future, or they'll just the hash rate will just drop.
Yeah.
In which
So
case,
how is the price of Bitcoin?
drops.
How is the price of BTC going to rise? What reason does anybody have to buy it or use it if it costs an absolute fortune and takes absolutely ages?
Well, it doesn't cost a fortune. You can do a transaction today for maybe 30 or 40 cents, and it takes about 15 minutes, right?
Well, 15 minutes is ridiculous. You can't stand.
Well, that's for 6 confirmations. That's not for broadcast to the network, and it's not being used for coffee today.
But
it's being used to move
and
large sums of money.
Yeah, but BTC will never be used for coffee ever because they've designed it so that it's not to be used for coffee. Whereas Bitcoin BSV, we are building it. Well, not me, I'm not building it, but the guys in Bitcoin are building it for as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. This is what Satoshi Nakamoto designed. He solved the problem of micropayments. And payments have to be instant and they have to be virtually free, as in negligible, so you don't notice anything. That is a cash system.
Right.
And whereas in BTC you're saying, oh right, well the network is just simply going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm just saying, well, if it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, then it's getting more centralized. Whereas you're saying, oh right, well if it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it also gets centralized. So that's the fundamental difference between the two. BTC are going, oh well, it just needs to get smaller and smaller and smaller as there are less and less miners because less and less people are going to start using the chain. And Bitcoin BSV are just like, well, actually, we need to get more and more people using the chain. And miners are going to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And we're going to get more people to use the network. And the reason they're going to use the network is because they're going to be economically incentivized to use it. Because the value, as more people use it, the value will just simply increase. So therefore, we need to give them a reason to use it. And the reason they're going to be using it is through data cost efficiencies and making their data immutable, because everything is digital these days. No records are ever kept on bits of paper and stuck in filing cabinets anymore. Everything is digital, and digital data is too precious to be lost. So therefore you put it on the blockchain and it's immutable forever.
This is true. I'm just wondering, are the fees enough on BSV to attract the miners? Because right now, the miners with the price being where it's at and the transactions being so low, and now a halvening coming up, I can make the same argument with BSV. Miners are going to leave because the most profitable chain to mine on right now is Bitcoin. So why wouldn't the BSV?
Do you ever look at CoinDance and the transactions on the network?
No, let's go there now.
Oh, okay. Well, let me see if I'll see if I can screen share. Hold on 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, do that, and you can walk me through it.
Yeah. I'm just gonna see. Oh,
I got it. I see it. Yeah, I see it.
Right. Hold on 1 second. I'm just gonna see if I can actually bring up if there's a way of
a browser window, or
I need to bring up a second screen somehow and get this. I
hope the bandwidth doesn't.
Oh, here we go. Can you see that now? Oh,
yeah, I can. Can you make it a little bigger?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me just reduce that. There we go. Let's see what this looks like. Oh.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me just add this. Hold on. Window capture. Then capture. It might not.
I can see it. You want to capture it on your stream.
Yeah, it's just not coming up on OBS for everybody else to see. But can you see it on Google Hangouts?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, right. So if we scroll down and look at here we go, daily average Bitcoin transactions by network. Are you seeing this?
I am. It's hard to read the numbers, but I can see it.
Okay, well that red line is Bitcoin SV.
Okay.
The yellow line is BTC, and the green line is BCH.
Okay, and what's the time period on the bottom?
So this goes from November 2018. So from November 2018 to now, which is like April 2020, this is the transactions on the Bitcoin SV network. So they have now surpassed BTC, and that means that literally all you have to
number of transactions, right? Microtransactions.
Well, the transactions. Well, if you want to look at transactions, or you can look at the amount of data. Here we go. Look at this. So this is transactions. So Bitcoin SV has currently got 56.4% of the actual transactions on the network, and it's got 54.6% of a block size in comparison. And this is all on BSV, so it just more and more people are starting to use it. And there's another one down here. So this is the daily average Bitcoin fees by network. So you can see how this one's gone right down. This is BSV, BCH in the middle, and BTC on top because the transactions are quite high. Yeah. So those statistics are extremely important because it shows the network is actually growing. Oh, you still there? Oh, can you hear me? Oh, let's just bring that down. Stop sharing. Oh, he's left the call. Let me see if we can get him back on. Hold on a second. Here we go. Copy a link to share. Here we go. Try that. Oh wow. Let's see what's going on.
Hello, are you there?
Are you back? Yes.
Yeah. I think the screen share was taking too much bandwidth. I think so.
That's all right. We've actually got quite a few people in the chat box now. Actually, let's have a quick look at this. Oh, look at this. Let's see.
I can't see it. How many?
We've got 10 watching.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. That's all right. There's quite and they're all having a good old chinwag in the chat box as well. Yeah, some people.
Are they BSVers or BTCers?
They'll all be BSVers in there. True Bitcoiners is what they'll be in there.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So this is what we were saying about with Bitcoin Satoshi's vision. The whole idea was that the blockchain effectively could store an infinite amount of data on it. And then people will be using the blockchain technology for the purpose of storing and sharing immutable data. And the way they store and share it is by buying Bitcoin in order to upload it. So that's where Bitcoin gets its value from, which is like the value of security of the data in comparison to the alternatives that corporates have available to them right now.
Right. Well, that's one theory, and time will tell, of course, to see if it scales and if companies move over and if hash rate shifts. I'll be interested to watch the next few months. I think It sounds like you think this might play out over the next few months, sooner rather than later, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because like as soon as that, I mean, miners are already struggling on the BTC network. Let alone suddenly having their block rewards smashed in half. Like, seriously, like Satoshi Nakamoto has to throw them a lifeline somehow, because there is no point in destroying the miners when they provide an essential service for the Bitcoin network, which is securing the network. But if they keep on going down the road that they're going and not using the blockchain, telling people, oh, don't use it, oh, that's spam transactions, what idiot is using it? Use the second layer Lightning network, open up a channel, it's going to cost you a little bit to start with, but there's no legal recourse, and it's basically a private company that has complete control of that second layer solution, and the data's not immutable. It's utterly worthless. So it's kind of like you can either continue with BTC and just simply let Bitcoin fail, or you can fight those people who are trying to destroy Bitcoin and follow what Satoshi had in mind, which was his vision that he laid out in the white paper.
Right. So what's your theory on the BSV was only created maybe a year ago, or I don't know. I'm not sure when they split from BCH.
November
it was about a year ago, I guess.
2018.
Okay, so about a year and a half ago. So, relatively new chain, of course. And meanwhile,
well, the chain actually goes back to the Genesis block.
Well, of course it does. But I guess the usage and the rails and network that's being built around the BSV chain is only a year and a half old in terms of like wallets and banking systems or whatever you want to say, I guess. What's your theory on the head start that BTC has gotten over 10 years? And, obviously it's by far the favored chain in terms of developers and hash rate and so forth. So how is BSV going to close that gap when BTC has got such a lead? And as we talked a little bit on chat before through texting, it's kind of like comparing it to Facebook or Google or Amazon or any of these incumbents that have been, such a huge head start over anybody else. How is it going to happen, or how could it be unseated?
Well, it's like this. So BSV and BCH all have the same network effect because they're all part of the same chain. Yeah, they're still part of that network that's grown over 10 years. So, everybody that had BTC has got BCH. And then everybody that's got BCH has also got BSV. So if you've not sold any of your forks, you have still got the same amount of BSV that you have of BCH that you have of BTC. And then it's just a case of, well, which one are you going to use the most? Because the one you're going to use the most is the one that eventually is going to draw the miners over. Because as more people use it, and then the price goes up, and as the price goes up, it becomes more attractive to mine, and the miners will just simply move over. So that's why it's all about utility. So it's kind of like if something is useless, you throw it out. I don't use that; it's useless to me. Why do I need it?
Sure.
Whereas this is the store of value versus medium of exchange, debate. Again, it's one of the narratives that, Blockstream have come out with. Oh, it's a store of value. You're not meant to use it. Whereas Bitcoin is just like, no, this is all about usage. You are meant to use it. It's a medium of exchange that facilitates trade. Because at the moment, when you're all these businesses and stuff like that, they're conducting trade and selling their services and their time for a medium of exchange, which is fiat, that is toxic, that loses value. Which just means that when there's an economic bump in the road, these businesses that have been around for years and years and years can just simply go bust overnight because they're using a medium of exchange that decreases in value. Whereas when you use Bitcoin, if you've been trading for years and years and years and years and years, and that value of Bitcoin has gone up and you've been using it to conduct business, you can deal with economic crises. That's the whole point of it. It's for use. It's for use in business. You're not meant to just sit on it and hodl it and do nothing with it. You're meant to conduct business with it. You're just like, oh, right, well, this is useful to me. I need some food. I'm going to buy some food. Here, will you accept this Bitcoin with it? Chances are, because it's fixed in supply, it's going to increase in value. And that person that's got the commodities that you want goes, yeah, okay, I'll swap with these commodities for that medium exchange that's going to increase in value. Job done. You get what you want, which is the food that you want, and they're quite happy with the token that they've received in exchange for it. The medium of exchange. because it's for usage. It's not meant to be just sat on and hodled and all that kind of crap.
So do you see a scenario developing where the two chains exist? One is more for a store of value, and one is for a medium of exchange.
Yeah, but how can it be a store of value if nobody uses it? The less people that use it, the less valuable it becomes.
Right. So I guess, I mean, gold is not used that much, but it's a store of value.
But are we talking about gold 200 meters underground stuck in a rock, or are we talking about gold that's been converted into gold bullion?
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's not. It's talk about the market, I guess.
But when you're saying it's a store of value, gold is still gold no matter where it is. But I would say that when gold is 200 meters underground stuck in a rock, it's of no value and no use to anybody. So therefore, it's only of value when it's been extracted from the ground, mined, refined, and molded, and changed into a medium of exchange. In that case, it can then be stored as a store of value, because it is a medium of exchange, because it can be used at a later date for something. Whereas if it's 200 meters underground, it can't be. Whereas if you're holding Bitcoin and it just simply, or BTC, and it just simply can't be used because the fees are ridiculously high, it takes like a week for it to transfer. People are just like, well, it's ridiculous. And then you're saying, oh, it's a store of value. Well, it's fixed in supply. It doesn't offer a dividend. It's not going to magically increase in value overnight. It's only going to increase in value if it's divided further as more and more people come in to use it and trade with it.
Which is what's happened to date.
Well, yeah, and then this is why BSV is massively scaling, so that companies can actually use it as it's something useful, because they're going to be using blockchain technology to save themselves huge amounts of money on data efficiencies, storing and sharing and data security.
Right. Well, that's an interesting perspective. I've never heard. I'll be honest with you. I don't do a lot of research on BSV, but it's interesting to hear that, and that's the vision, I guess, of the roadmap for BSV.
This is kind of like another application that is. I mean, the Bitcoin, as in the Bitcoin that Satoshi Nakamoto wrote about in his white paper, the cash aspect was just simply one application of the blockchain technology that he created. Blockchain technology is effectively immutable data, and therefore you can just simply apply that to loads of different things. So you can store data on it, you can save data on it, and because blockchain is like I said, it's a mathematical sum. Maths is infinite. So therefore there's an infinite amount of data storage on it, which means that you're not limited by servers or space or the amount of money it costs to employ staff or virus software, cyber security. You can get rid of all of that. It's complete peace of mind. That's what blockchain technology is all about. So the Bitcoin is just simply an application of this thing.
Okay, so but what would you say to the Bitcoin people that what's preventing Bitcoin from one day? Let's say they wake up to this premise and they say, you know what, we need to increase our block sizes to 1 terabyte as well, and they make a block size change on the main Bitcoin chain. So then what happens? I mean, what's preventing Bitcoin from doing the same thing?
As in BTC?
Yeah.
Well, it's the will to do it. Like, they do not want the blockchain to be used, because they are funded by organizations that have got suspiciously close links to the Federal Reserve.
This is the conspiracy part. I mean, if you want to go down the conspiracy road, I guess we can. But the point is, if they're technologists and they want their chain to ultimately be the winning chain and the most used, I guess taking the conspiracy aside, is there anything preventing from the BTC chain from just increasing the block size massively, and now we've got the same as BSV? What would happen then?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's the ability to do it, as in do you have the technology and the know-how, as in BTC does not have the know-how. And then if they do have the know-how, what if the know-how or the ability to scale the chain has been patented, of which N-Chain holds all the patents for scaling?
Do they? I don't know. Would a block size increase violate any patents? I don't know.
There's blockchain have I think they've got, last time I looked back last year, they had 800 patents on scaling, because people just don't know how to do it. blockchain is Satoshi Nakamoto's baby. He's the one that has figured this out and knows how to do it.
Well, if you're saying that CSW is Satoshi, right?
Well, it looks that way, but yeah, I mean, whether he is or he isn't is completely irrelevant to the actual project, because even if he is Satoshi Nakamoto, because there's a chain of signatures in blockchain, nobody has got control over it. The signatures are still intact.
Right. Yeah.
It would only matter if he was Satoshi Nakamoto, if he had control of BTC and there was no longer a chain of signatures, validate and holding everybody accountable on the system.
He's no different than he's no different than Vitalik, who started Ethereum. That's right. I mean, that's probably a good comparison, right? Would you agree?
Well, yeah, but the difference is that everybody knew who Vitalik was, and therefore he had control and influence and authority over the growth of the network. And if you have a centralized point of authority that's got influence and control over the growth of the network, it has a fundamental value of nothing, because both China and America could just simply replicate it the same. The whole point of Bitcoin is that the starting point was decentralized, as in kind of like nobody knew who created it.
Sure.
And that person had no influence over the growth of the network. So people have chosen to use that network freely without any influence from anybody else.
Yeah,
so therefore America and China are effectively going to, if people and businesses start using Bitcoin, governments just simply have to fall into line, and governments will not go up against corporations, because there are two things that corporations want. Corporations want to make money and they want to save money. That is it. And corporations employ the world. The corporations are what give people the ability to put a roof over their head, food on the table, and the heating on and stuff like that. They keep society civil.
The economic engine for sure.
Yeah. So if you give corporates the ability, the technology that sees them, with data security and huge data sharing efficiencies, where instead of having multiple ledgers, everything is just on one. I mean, imagine the efficiencies and the safety that comes with, for example, air traffic control data systems merging onto one single ledger, because the ledger itself is distributed. Then you wouldn't have issues with like the likes of Malaysian Airlines MH370 flying in and out of airspaces, because the airspace record would all simply be on one ledger. Whereas at the moment, you cannot have all that recorded data on a single server, because that single server can just be attacked and it would completely devastate the entire airline industry. But now you can have all those records on a single ledger, because it's that ledger itself that is distributed.
Right, but it still needs to be protected behind private keys, the data.
Well, yeah, but you can protect it behind private keys. That's the whole point. But you can have, let's say, let's say another one, a system of driverless cars. It would be too dangerous to have a system of driverless cars on a single server. But what you can have them is on a single ledger when the ledger is distributed, because there's no single central point of failure or central point of authority within the system. And nobody has got control over the system because the signatures are intact. Right. And the same thing goes for medical records, and it also goes for organ donation and stem cell treatment and blood types. If you've got everything on a single system, the efficiencies are absolutely massive. It's only when you've got things stored on different ledgers that creates mismanagement and inefficiencies and corruption.
Right. But would you not agree that CSW is kind of the leader of BSV?
But whether he is or whether he isn't is of no consequence whatsoever, because he hasn't got control over the system, because the signatures are intact. There's nothing he can do.
So he can't influence the direction that the project moves.
Well, I mean, he's got no control over it. It's having control over the network that is absolutely essential. If a central point of authority can manipulate, can do nefarious activities on the system, or there is a way to conduct nefarious activities on a system, like for example through SegWit and not having the chain of signatures validating the transactions with one another, then there's a problem there. But so what if he's got the scaling patents for the technology? He doesn't have a central point of a control over the system. No one does. That's the whole point of Bitcoin. Is to decentralization is a number of things. It's kind of like you distribute the ledger. That's a way of doing it. Keeping the signatures intact. That's another way of doing it. It's all about removing power. That's the whole point of Bitcoin, is to remove power and make it completely neutral. Whereas when you add SegWit, that central point of authority that added SegWit is giving themselves power over that system to do whatever they want with it, and nobody can tell them not to. And nobody can see what they've been up to either. And then if you're using a second layer solution, well, nothing's immutable on the second layer solution. You can't track anything whatsoever. And you can't have money on a second layer solution that isn't immutable because it's money. If money can just be deleted, it's not worth anything.
Well, of course, yeah, of course. I mean, nobody wants their transactions deleted. I mean, that's not the. I mean, that's not the intent of the second layer solution.
Yeah, but you can't have, unless something goes through the blockchain, unless something uses blockchain technology, it's not immutable. That's the whole point of blockchain technology, is immutable data.
Yeah, agreed. But I still think the Bitcoin main chain is immutable. I wouldn't.
It is immutable, but it has to scale for everyone to use.
Yeah, it does, and I mean,
exactly. So why didn't Blockstream do it?
Do what? Scale
the chain.
Increase the block size.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they believe that maybe they don't believe it can be scaled to that extent.
Yeah, but we've proved them. Yeah, but Satoshi's vision has already proved them wrong. So they either did it intentionally or they're incompetent. Which is it?
Well, they haven't proved them wrong yet. Satoshi's vision hasn't proved them wrong yet.
What do you mean? Satoshi's vision hasn't proved them wrong yet? They've already scaled for two. They've already done. I think they've mined a 1.5 megabyte block that had 300,000 transactions in it.
So how many is that per second?
It's over 2,000.
Okay. Well, like we said, Visa does 20 or 50K, right? And then American Express does another 20 or 50, and MasterCard does another 20
Yeah, but how long have they been around for? Bitcoin Satoshi's vision has only been around for 12 months, and they can already match them.
Well, no, they haven't matched them. They're not doing 100,000 in a second.
Well, just give it a bit more time. Well, yeah, only because there isn't enough transactions on the network. But EHR Data Healthcare, they need to do they need a system that enables them to do a minimum of 5,000 transactions a second on the network, which is why they're uploading their data to the BSV network, because they know it can handle it.
Yeah. So this is one of the things that, I mean, and again, it's kind of cliche, but, time will tell, right? I mean, you can theorize as much as you want about should scaling be done on the main chain, and they can handle the 50,000, 100,000 a second, give it time. And I can say, no, the second layer is the answer, and they're building it out. It's early days. Let the Lightning Network mature. And, nobody really knows, right? Nobody knows for sure 100% of anything, right? Because nobody can predict the future, and nobody knows how fast the technology will change. And I'm not an expert in any of these fields, and I certainly don't claim to be. So you have to put your weight behind the project that you think it has the most chance of success, and also adheres to the core vision that Satoshi came out with. So, I mean, are you 100% in the BSV camp? Or, I mean, and I don't want to get personal on your finances, but I mean, are you invested 100% in BSV and zero everywhere else? Or do you have your portfolio kind of spread out to different coins? I mean, do you think it's prudent to park your money in different projects to see and hedge against certain successes and failures? Or are you advocating, we got to go all in on BSV 100%, don't look at anything else?
The only thing you can do in the cryptocurrency market is research. This is not stocks and shares that has, various different markets that, you can assess the skills of the board and their track records of the CEO and the dividend that they're going to give out. This is a medium of exchange. A medium of exchange is a tool that facilitates, encourages, a tool that enables, encourages, and accelerates the facilitation of trade. So therefore, you just simply have to look at the tool that facilitates trade in the best way. And the one that facilitates trade in the best way is the biggest, the fastest, the most secure, and the one that offers legal protection is fundamental to facilitating trade. So you cannot have legal protection if the data that you're sending has not gone through the blockchain and is not immutable. Effectively it's like an IOU. So therefore you have got no claim against it, because unless you've been using a third party that holds a money transmitter, is a registered money service business or holds a money transmitter license, that data cannot be trusted, because it can be deleted. Yeah. So therefore everything has. So therefore it's the data that goes through the blockchain that is immutable, and it's that data that has value because companies are buying that data in order to upload their data onto the blockchain to save themselves huge data cost efficiencies. So it's that data itself that has value, which effectively is Bitcoin.
Yeah, I would just caution that, you could be 100% correct, and maybe you are, but just remember in history, it's not always the most logical or the most reasonable, the most technically competent technology that comes out on top, right? I mean, you can look throughout history and look at software, look at hardware, look at computer programming, whatever you want to look at. I mean, there's never 100% when humans are involved and politics is involved. There's never 100% certainty in anything, right? So, to say, this is 100% for sure the answer, and everything else is going to fail, and this is going to be the dominant thing, and so I just can't advocate somebody to put all their eggs in one basket. I mean, you have to have a certain risk tolerance, I guess, as to where you think the successful chain is going to be and where you want to put your money, if you want to put your money where your mouth is or not. But we know in history that just because everything you say may make complete sense, that doesn't guarantee any kind of success, right? I mean, as we see right now, Bitcoin controls about 90+% of the hash rate. So, unless there's a massive shift soon, the train may have left the station. So, you can hedge. You can hedge and have money in all the different pots, but I just see time slipping away, right? I just see time slipping away. So, there needs to be some radical changes quickly, or otherwise it's going to be too late, basically. So that's where I'm coming from. So, would I consider myself a maximalist? I don't know. I have some other coins I invest in as well. I'm just not radicalized, right? You can be radicalized or you can be rational, right?
Well, yeah, but in terms of being rational, if you do you keep your eye on the coin market cap quite regularly?
Oh, the top 10 or what?
Well, yeah, just generally. Like if you look at it, the entire market is linked to BTC. BTC goes up, the rest of the market follows it. BTC goes down, the rest of the market follows it. It's an absolute shit show. There is no.
So what does that tell you?
What
does that tell you?
Well, yeah, at the moment, it tells me that BTC is an absolute pile of shite because it can't scale. Data's got no value on any second layer solution. It will be never used as money. So basically, if it's not got rid of, the Bitcoin project is dead because they're not encouraging you to use the chain. So therefore, there won't be enough subsidies to support the miner, and eventually, we're just going to end up with nothing. So it's just like, right, well, we're going to follow Satoshi's vision and fight against those people who are trying to destroy it, and bring Satoshi's vision for Bitcoin alive.
So do you think they're intentionally trying to destroy it, the core developers?
Yeah, massively. Just listen to all the bullshit that they come out with. When did it be chained? When was it not a peer-to-peer electronic cash system? Oh, it's not money. It's meant to be a store of value. Oh, the chain is meant to be small. Where Satoshi Nakamoto got it wrong. No, he didn't. It's outrageous.
Right. But they have financial interest in it succeeding, do they not?
No. What financial interest do they have? How many heads have you seen that have rolled since BTC got to $20,000 and then dropped down to 3 and then got up to where we are now, which is like 5, 6, or 7? Do you see any of the guys at Blockstream sweating for their jobs?
Well, they're not sweating for their jobs, but don't you think they hold coins?
Well, they might hold coins, but but they're not paid. They're not paid by coins. They're paid by the people who they got their funding from. And if the people at the funding from say, "Look, here's 100 million quid. Make sure that project fails," they're like, "All right then, there you go."
yeah, I guess, but the cat's kind of out of the bag, right? So now that Bitcoin exists and blockchain exists, I mean, I just see I don't see a world where even if BTC fails, that all of blockchain technology and transfer of money over the blockchain just goes down to zero, right? I mean, why the technology, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, right? So to speak. It's already out there.
Yeah, but there's a difference
Right?
between blockchain technology and blockchain. So blockchain technology is just simply building data or attaching data to more bits of data so that if you change it, then the rest of the sum changes as well. So basically you
Yeah.
can't change it. But blockchain itself is the whole point of having immutable data. So if you have that one blockchain that goes to a central source, all that's required is for that central source to turn it off, and that's it, gone forever. Everything completely lost. So therefore, blockchain technology is just simply attaching data to each other, whereas blockchain is immutable data, which requires no central point of authority. So therefore, you have to take power away from the central source. And the way you do that is by making sure that no central source has got any control over the system, which is therefore you have to keep them honest, which is why you have the chain of signatures which validate each other. Then you have to distribute. Then you have to distribute the network and decentralize it to get other people involved in the project as well. Because all these things are all about diluting power. That's the whole point of it. So that you can't have the Fed that suddenly says, oh, you know what, we don't like this blockchain technology anymore. We're gonna take it down. Whereas China will be like, well, actually, we're finding it quite useful, so we're going to carry on using it. And Russia will be like, well, we find it quite useful as well. We're going to carry on using it. Yeah, and the UK and Europe might say, well, we're finding it quite useful as well. We're going to carry on using it. And then the Fed's just like, all right, well, we're not going to use it. And everyone else is like, okay, well, you can't trade with us then, but we're using this medium of exchange because it's helping us and it's increasing in value. And the reason we're using it is because we're finding huge efficiencies in data in terms of its security, because we can now trust it, and in terms of sharing it as well and storage. So we don't have to worry about storing all of our data on a central server that's going to run out of space, that's got a few dodgy members of staff looking after it. We can just simply upload it to the blockchain. That saves us a huge headache, knowing that our data is secured by a distributed network that has no central point of authority or control over it.
Yeah. Yeah. But so you have a node probably in your house, correct?
No, I don't run a node. I don't need to.
Oh, you don't run a node. Okay. Okay. So I do. I run a couple just for a hobby, just for fun. I mean, I'm not obviously not mining now from the node, but it's just to
Do you have a
validate my own
Raspberry Pi?
transactions. I do. I have a couple of Raspberry Pis. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it's more of a, like I said, a hobbyist. Do I need to run a node? Not really, but it's kind of fun and you learn quite a bit when you do it, right? So, but the point is, I mean, as long as I have that node and as long as the software exists and as long as the internet exists and as long as there's other nodes and as long as there's miners, nobody can stop me from sending or receiving money over the BTC network. So
They
still
can,
go back
because you can only send money, as in like, if that Bitcoin is redeemed, and therefore it can only be redeemed if the blockchain exists. And the blockchain can't exist if it can't. Yeah, but if the blockchain can't economically sustain itself, or because nobody's using it, and the block reward keeps getting cut in half every 4 years, so therefore there's less and less miners that are incentivized to sustain it, and therefore effectively it becomes centralized, and then eventually that miner, you're going to have like one single entity mining it because nobody else can afford to. You're screwed, because the Fed will just be like, right, thank you very much, see you later. We're not using that magic internet money anymore, or the crime coin, whatever they want to accuse it of being. We'll go back to the good old US dollar.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that could certainly happen, and I think it's going to happen relatively quickly if what you're saying is true, because with the halvening coming up, this is going to be an interesting next few months, because the block reward's going to have, and the price is low relative to where it used to be. So either miners are going to have to continue to mine very unprofitably, or they're going to have to move to another chain, right? Because I don't think mining is going away completely. They're going to mine something, right? They've already invested hundreds of millions of dollars into mining equipment. They're not just going to put it in the trash and throw it out.
They're going to mine something. So the question is, where's that hash rate going to go? Is it going to stay on Bitcoin with the hope that the price eventually rises? Or is it going to go to BCH or BSV or to maybe another coin? And so the next few months is going to be very interesting to see. Right now on CoinDance, it says it's more profitable to mine on BTC over BSV. I'm sorry. It's more profitable to mine on BTC by 1.4% over BSV, but BSV hasn't halved yet. And on BCH, it's 84% more profitable to mine on BTC. So right now the miners are on
84%?
BTC, right? So that's what it says on CoinDance. Am I reading that correctly?
Oh, let's have a look. That's hilarious. It could be true. Who knows? Let's have a quick look.
Look at the profitability.
This sounds brilliant. Hold on, let's have a look. I might have to screenshot that, if that's right. It's 80. That is brilliant. It's 84.7% more profitable to mine on the BTC blockchain.
Because of halving. Right?
That is absolutely hilarious. That is hilarious. So who's going to be mining BCH now? Like, honestly,
nobody right now. I'm assuming that will adjust.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah,
well, I always call BCH B crash anyway, and it's it's crashing badly. It's ridiculous.
So let me ask you, just out of curiosity, were you previously a fan of BTC and then you moved to BCH and now BSV, or what was your evolution in your path to get here?
Oh yeah, massively. I mean, I followed the white paper. So first of all, there was BTC, and I was like, oh, this is brilliant. And then because obviously there was nothing in comparison to BTC at the time, so I was just like, well, if you look at the comparison between BTC and fiat is just inflated into infinity. And therefore, you've got, Satoshi Nakamoto's design of Bitcoin, which effectively is a deflationary currency. I was just like, oh my God, this is brilliant. This is what businesses need.
Right.
Businesses need a medium of exchange that is, that's divisible, that's portable, that's instant, that's virtually free. And so as in, like, the more you use it, the more it increases in value. So like I said, businesses, when they hit an economic bump in the road, can ride through it. I was like, this is amazing. So it prevents bubbles. So it just means that the central banks are no longer just printing money, into the economy, which is then like fed into asset bubbles like the stock market or housing or whatever's next. This is absolutely brilliant. This is what needs to happen. But then when they were saying, oh well, actually we're not going to use it as cash anymore. It's going to be a store of value. It's not meant to be used. I was just like, well, hold on a minute. All the businesses of the world are going to be using this. This is a cash system. Like, what are you doing? It's going to cost you 50 quid to send this transaction. I was like, are you joking? Like, businesses can't use this. This is insane. I mean, when you think of the volume of transactions of global trade, even a penny for a transaction is far too expensive. It's ridiculous. Right. When you think of the number of transactions that are done in world trade, if you add a penny to each one, it would be billions of dollars every year. Going where?
Course,
lost. Absolutely ridiculous. And also, I mean, you can effectively send a bank transfer to somebody within your same economic area, for free. And then if you want to do international transfers, well, there's the SWIFT system, but then XRP came along to sort of like take care of that. I was like, this is absolutely rubbish because XRP is completely centralized, so therefore it's a service and not a currency. And then you've got to, look at what money is. Well, money has to be completely neutral. And I was just like, well, if you've got this one single entity that is saying, right, we're not going to scale it, but what we're going to do is we're going to step away from Satoshi Nakamoto's original design, break the chain of signatures, and we're going to tell everybody that the chain of signatures actually allows for a slight increase in the block size, so that's a good thing, but they're still not meant to be using it anyway. And then we're going to scale off-chain, and by the way, it's going to cost you a small fortune to set up a channel, but the data in that second layer solution isn't going through the blockchain, so therefore it's not immutable, so therefore it's susceptible to foul play. I was just like, this is insane. And then...
But you went from BTC to BCH first, correct?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay. Just curious I just was curious about the evolution. And then when they split, you went to BSV after Roger and CSW had their issues, right?
Well, yeah, but I knew that Roger was talking about going anonymous, and I was just like, as we said before, you need legal recourse in the trade. If you cannot prove that you have made a transaction to someone, you have no legal recourse because you can't prove that you've paid them anything.
That's right.
Okay, so I was
I would agree.
So I was like, an anonymous system is no use to me whatsoever. As a business that needs legal recourse in the trade, because legal recourse is fundamental to it being useful. To conduct business. Right. That's what it's all about.
Right.
And then Roger was going, oh yeah, well we better smoke crack in our own homes. And I was like, what are you talking about? This is business. This is a medium of exchange, a tool that enables and encourages and accelerates the facilitation of trade. Why on earth are you going on about smoking crack in your own home? You absolute idiot.
Right. So what's your opinion on something like XRP then? If you want to talk about just business transactions, why wouldn't we use Ripple?
Well, this is it. So money has to be completely neutral, and that's when it comes down to the paradox of this centralized starting point. If it has a centralized starting point, it has no fundamental value whatsoever. And with it being a digital currency, it means that everything has a centralized starting point. So therefore, if everything's got a centralized starting point, how on earth can you give it any value? And then it says, oh, right, well, actually, you can give it value by the size of the network, so long as the network has not grown for a certain period of time, with a central point of authority or control.
Right.
And that's what Satoshi Nakamoto realized. He was just like, look, so using a pseudonym was absolutely essential, but people are just like, oh, right, he's anonymous, he doesn't want to be found, but they don't realize that was absolutely essential to adding value to the network. Because now you've got a network that, when you're trying to decide which one are you going to use, China's going, oh yeah, use R1. America's just like, no, we're never going to use that. And then America's just like, right, use R1. Right. China's just like, no, thanks, mate, we're not going to use that either. Then you're back to square one, which is like you're using different currencies. So therefore, it's a case of how do you encourage these people to use a system? Well, if you've got a system that generally that people have chosen to use, without any point of influence or control, chosen it through their free will, and this system has grown over a period of 10 years without any central point of authority or control, what's going to compete with that? You can't use XRP because it's completely centralized. And also, money has to be indestructible. XRP burns to balance the ledger because it's pre-mined. So therefore, it's effectively like writing checks with invisible ink or, using chocolate buttons as money. They just simply disintegrate. It's absolutely insane. That will never work as money. So people are just never going to use it. And you can't build applications on a chain that disintegrates, that uses burning to balance the ledger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. I'm not a Ripple believer. I know that there's a lot of people pushing that as the global currency,
Well, yeah, but that's because of the tagline of like backed by the banks. But if you think about it, because Ripple Labs controlled it from that central point of authority, they have complete control over that chain. They are a money service business, so their business only has value against the cost savings that their customers save from using the SWIFT system.
Right.
So. But effectively, the SWIFT system is there because money doesn't work very well. Well, suddenly, if you've got money that does work, like Bitcoin, that you can transact anywhere in the world effectively for free, then XRP stands no chance whatsoever. Because the whole point of XRP is to compete against the SWIFT system. Take the SWIFT system away, and then XRP is worth absolutely nothing. It's effectively a token. So it's a bit like Binance token. People are saying, oh yeah, we can use Binance token. Well, what if the Binance exchange gets shut down? Binance is a centralized exchange. If that exchange got taken down, immediately that Binance token has a fundamental value of absolutely nothing. And
exactly. Well, I mean, it would still be traded on secondary markets, but the value would go away because Binance went away.
Well, yeah, and if it's got no value, how can you trade it for goods and services?
Yeah, it becomes a speculative market then, and just mainly for just trading and speculation.
Becomes a shitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes a shitcoin.
Yeah, a complete shitcoin because it's centralized, and effectively, Binance token is a security because it's issued by a central point of authority, and that's what XRP is. It's issued by a central point of authority. Ethereum, effectively, anything that had a central point of authority issued by that authority is a security. So effectively, like proof of stake is a security. And proof of delegated stake is even worse because you've got people who who stake their claim and stake their control of the system. So all it is those people can collude, and the system has complete control over it. Whereas in Bitcoin, it's distributed through the mining network, so no single miner has control of the network. And effectively, because the miners secure the network, if they don't come to consensus on something, of which they're not going to come to, like if you had a group of miners that said, oh yeah, we're going to roll back the chain, that's absolute bollocks. Because they've decided to do something which should not be allowed to happen. And if they can do that once, they'll just simply do it again. The chain has never been rolled back on Bitcoin, and nor will it be.
Nor will it be, because the incentive is, so far, the incentive has been greater to play by the rules than to try to break the rules, right?
Well, exactly. So why would you give the ability to break the rules by breaking the chain of signatures?
Well, I don't know if that gives it the ability to break the rules, because I haven't seen any rules been broken yet. But
just because a tsunami hadn't ever hit Thailand before doesn't mean that it's not going to.
Yeah, but I'm not a programmer, so I can't tell you. I mean, if that someone can steal, with that broken chain of witnesses, if that results in a security issue, or somebody can steal your funds.
Well, think about it. It's a chain of signatures. The signatures validate one another, so it keeps the system honest. You break the system.
So why hasn't some? Yeah, but why hasn't somebody walked away with billions of dollars then and broken the security model?
Because they were paid $100 million already, not to.
But they can get billions off the network, not hundreds of millions, billions.
But if they did hundreds of billions off the BTC network, then the BTC network would immediately crash to zero. Everybody would use either BSV or BCH, and then those people who don't want Bitcoin to succeed are screwed. Because suddenly they've lost control of a system that nobody wants to use anymore. So they're just like, oh right, bugger, the Bitcoin Satoshi vision is still alive. They want to maintain it, but they want to stop people from using it. So the block reward keeps counting down until effectively the project is completely done for, because the chain will collapse due to non-sustainability. Because it can't be economically sustained. And then when that happens, what are the chances of a neutral money ever being created again when it's that central starting point that means it shouldn't have any value? This can never happen again. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we've got here. Because there's no way that this can happen again, where someone like Satoshi Nakamoto comes along and designs something. They would always be able to trace him and track him down. There is no way a network can grow like it has done for a period of 10 years without people knowing who it was that created it any longer.
Right. No, I agree. It's this happens once in history, and this can't be screwed up, or we lost our only chance to change money, right?
Well, exactly. Sure. So it's kind of like this is why Bitcoin Satoshi's vision is saying, look, we've got one shot at this. We have to make sure the chain survives. All these people saying, oh, don't use the chain, effectively it's an attack on Bitcoin. A second layer solution. Again, attack on Bitcoin. Not using it, an attack on Bitcoin. Replaced by fee, an attack on Bitcoin. Creating lots of other Bitcoins as well to dilute the name. An attack on Bitcoin. It's a political masterclass that they have given people. It's been absolutely brilliant, but that's what their intention is. Because everything is about not using the chain. Oh, censorship-resistant money. Everybody has to run a node. And if everybody has to run a node, it just means that the world can't use it, because people's nodes can't grow the network enough for global commerce to use. It's absolutely it's absolutely insane.
Of course not. Yeah,
well, it's not global money then. If it's a closed market and not everybody can use it, people would just simply find alternatives.
If the chain becomes, if it can't process the transactions, then people will stop using it. Correct.
Well, yeah. So it's competitive by nature, which is what I'm saying. There will only be one left standing at the end. So there is no point in having a diversified portfolio, because when they crash, they're going to crash real fast, really fast.
All of them.
Well, like one at a time. But when that one crashes, it's like a dam bursting. A dam doesn't just sort of take ages to crumble and crack. First of all, there's a point of weakness, a crack develops, that point of weakness gets weak. Yeah, exactly. Boom, just gone. And that's what's going to happen. I mean, look at BCH right now. It's 84.7% more profitable to mine on BTC. That's a goner. That is not going to be around very long at all. It's hilarious.
Well, I think that's just because of the halving just occurred. And I think once BTC halves, then that ratio will
Yeah, but how many
narrow,
people? I mean, if it's 84.7% more profitable to mine on BTC, or those miners are just simply not going to mine it. It's absolutely insane. You know, and then when as in like the chain gets less and less and less secure, until eventually, you know, somebody comes along like Satoshi Nakamoto and goes, right, we need your hash rate, which means you douchebags that are still mining it, you know, have got to go. See you later. Boom. 51% attack. Right. And then the miners are just like, right, well, now we don't have a coin anymore because it's been 51% attacked. What are we going to do? Are we going to mine BTC, who are encouraging people to not use the chain and therefore not use our mining services? Or are we going to mine, you know, the genuine Bitcoin that Satoshi Nakamoto designed, which was all about immutable data and everybody using the chain and scaling it for world money?
Right. Yeah. It's going to be an interesting next few months, that's for sure, as all these coins have, and we see where the hash power goes, right, on which chain, and what the prices do, of course, too. I mean, you would agree that you need BSV's price to go up. I mean, it can't.
Yeah, but the price is going to go up with utility.
Yeah, but will utility happen fast enough? Meanwhile, there's another halving that's happening in a couple of days. The question is, how fast is utility going to take place? You don't have 5 years for utility to build out while the price stays stagnant and the halvings occur, right? I mean, it's not economically feasible to stay on that chain, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
There's got to be price action on all these chains, not just BSV.
Totally.
I mean, otherwise it becomes, you know, miners have to pay bills. They have to pay for upgrading their equipment. They have to pay for maintaining their equipment. They have to pay for power costs. I mean, this isn't a free game, right? And these costs are enormous for these miners. So unless the prices rise for these coins, then it becomes economically infeasible to continue to mine, and then the whole thing just fails, right? So anyhow, listen, this has been a fascinating discussion.
Yeah. So, but what I would say is, like, you know, so when you were talking about, you know, price increases and stuff like that, you know, how is that going to happen? Well, I've been keeping a close eye on things, and I think I have a good idea as to how it is going to happen, because how
is it going to happen?
Well, again, you know, it's an idea, and I think I know how it's going to happen. But you know, I'm just speculating, so it's kind of like, you know, what I would say is do your own research. But I wouldn't be in this if I didn't think what is going to happen. You know, if I didn't think what could happen would happen.
Okay. But so it's a theory you're not willing to share, or?
Well, we can chat about it when we're off air if you want.
Okay. Okay. We'll do that. We'll do that. Well, listen, this has been great. I appreciate learning a little bit more about the BSB perspective, and you know, we tend to get into our silos, and this is a very cultish environment, as you know, if you're on Twitter. And people tend to put on the goggles, the narrow-minded goggles, and they're not willing to listen. So, I mean, again, I think we're all after the same thing, but there becomes these battles between the camps, and then nobody wants to listen to anybody else, and it just becomes like a forum where people just put each other down and sort of pick apart arguments and all that, where, you know, it's unfortunate it degrades to that sometimes, but I'm always willing to listen and just have a chat, and this has been fun. So I've learned a lot, and I appreciate you asking me to do this. Yeah,
thanks for coming on the show. I have thoroughly enjoyed myself this afternoon. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, same here. Thanks again, and stay safe out there.
All right, see you soon. Thanks very much.
Take care, OG.
Cheers, mate. All right, bye.
Cheers.